Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round one of the 2022 Halfords Formula Alpha International Championship. We are here at Kyalami this weekend to start off the new season, and what a new season it is. It is a new era for the Formula Alpha Championship. We've got new drivers, we've got the same good tracks though, but more importantly, we have got new cars. We are now here with the RSS Supreme. Basically, it's relatively similar to a Formula 3/Formula 2 car. Highlights 550 horsepower. And quite interestingly, we have a push-to-pass system in effect now. So let's see how the drivers contend with that. Feedback on the new car so far has been absolutely brilliant, and it looks like some drivers are starting to get really comfortable with it now. We've got just under 15 minutes to go in qualifying, and it is Colin Knief currently topping the timing sheets there. Purple Sector 1, a 1 minute 22.2 on that previous attempt. We will join in to see if anyone else is currently going for a fast lap attempt, but here we are at Kyalami. It's been a while since we were last here. Obviously the first round of last year, as we see, is that Andrew Whitehead. Yes, it is improving to go second fastest there at 122.7. Purple Sector 3 for him, and what a brilliant livery that is on Andrew Whitehead's car there. I think that has to be my favourite, it must be said, as we see John Baker improving there to go fifth fastest now. We're 125.3 on that previous attempt there. So the drivers really enjoying the new car by the looks of things. It seems to get better as you push it further and further. It seems to be the feedbacks so far, which is I imagine a little bit different to the older Tartus that we're used to, as much as we did love that car. But yes, a new era for Formula Alpha. Very exciting times indeed. Because just over 12 minutes to go in qualifying now. We'll go on board with Barry Clayton as he is on a fast lap as well. That neon green/yellow livery as ever for Barry Clayton, looking very nice on the new car. Very nice indeed. As we see, who is that improving there? We have new drivers as well, of course. That is Will Harper. Of course, he's no longer just Will Harper. He's now Mr. Will Harper. I imagine the extra letters on the end of the name there will be hoping to get him an extra few tenths off his timing sheet in this qualifying session. Let's see if that trick works for a Mr. Will Harper there. As we have currently 12 cars in the session, and Colin Knief is back out on a fast lap. He's just gone Purple Sector 1. Again, apologies, the audio will go a bit funny when I lead away there. It just goes 24.3 seconds there. I need to adjust the timing screen so I can see them a little bit more clearly, but we'll get that sorted in the interim. Hopefully you can hear the audio all right. I will be checking the levels just momentarily, but it's all good to get everything in order for the new season. As we see him come towards the end of Sector 2 now. It's about 3 tenths slower than his personal best at the end of Sector 2 that time round, but we'll watch him come towards the end of the lap now. No one else is currently competing with him on track at the moment, so he's starting this season well. If he means to carry on like this, if he means to carry on the way he ended last season, I'm sure we're in for a treat in terms of watching Colin Knief's pace there. He comes round the final corner of Kyalami here. I won't even bother to attempt and pronounce that, and unfortunately he doesn't improve his personal best there. Still that 122.4, keeping him on pole at the moment. Not looking too secure at the moment with 11 minutes to go in qualifying. I don't believe we've seen anything from Matt Daly yet. Matt Daly, obviously, his qualifying strategy is to turn up at the very last minute and post a very impressive first lap time, and that is what it looks like he's planning to do this evening. So that's 550 horsepower on board these cars now, which they should be exercising all the way down the start-finish straight, all the way through the Kinkin into Crowthorne rather. The left-hand hairpin, or it's sort of a hairpin, it turns back on itself as we see a little bit of dirt being picked up by Colin there. Still Purple Sector 1 though, so we'll stay with him for Sector 2 as he comes now down towards, interestingly, my live timing system has actually got the track facing a different orientation, which is something quite interesting there. But we'll get that sorted in just a second there. He's 9 tenths slower on this attempt is Colin, so it looks like that first lap he got in was quite a good banker lap there, really. He hasn't been able to match that so far. This car is unfamiliar to everyone. Everyone's been trying to get as much practice as possible. Shout out, by the way, as we see Colin abandon that, shout out to rookie Paul Brady in the car, who has put in, near as makes no difference, 150 laps in the practice there. I don't know if that was the only laps he was doing in practice, but he was doing more in single player as well. That is an immense amount of practice there, and so far it's treating him quite well. He is not at the bottom of the order for his first time out in the car, so he's doing a very nice job there. As we see, looks like there's been a little bit of contact between Guy Strawbrick and Steve Knight there, both picking up a little bit of damage, not too severe. They may want to carry on in this stint, and their stint in qualifying, obviously that lap will be ruined, as we see Andrew Whitehead improving his time then, heading through the kink now, although it's less of a kink these days, especially in these cars, very high downforce cars. As we see, a very small improvement from Andrew Whitehead there, but those tiny marginal gains can make all the difference by the time we get to the end of the qualifying session. And in terms of qualifying battles, Matt Daly has joined in now. He is on the time screen, so we can stay on board with him. His first fast lap was only 7/10 off the pace of Colin Knief, so he's looking fairly racy indeed as we head through turn 1 now with Matt Daly. We have some more contact there. It looks like Mr. Will Harper there, as I'm now only going to refer to him as for the rest of the season probably, so apologies Will for that. Has had a little bit of an incident by the looks of things. We will stay on board with Matt Daly. Those car looks great heading through some of the high speed corners. It looks so eager to turn in, looks so happy, so confidence inspiring for the drivers here. So I imagine this car will be a bit of a treat to watch as we head through this season. We do actually have a few new tracks this year. We are changing the order up a little bit compared to last year, so that'll be one to watch as we see these top 3 currently leading this qualifying session now then. As we head further down the order, we've got quite a nice battle building up between Barry Clayton, George Brooke Battersby, and then further down we have Alan Matthews, Andrew Brammer, and then Andrew Whitehead. Oh, that's Rob Whitney rather. Rob Whitney now up into the pro category, as is Paul Millman, I am told, so well done to Paul for that as well. See, Andrew Whitehead's actually just gone purple Sector 3 and decided to abandon this stint in the end. Unfortunately, Sector 2 hampered him on that lap attempt, but let's see Matt Daly cross the line. Does he improve his time? No, he doesn't, but Barry Clayton improves his time, as does Matt Daly. I got the cars a little bit mixed up there. That's brought Matt Daly just a little bit closer, only by 300ths of a second rather, whereas Andrew Whitehead's found quite a nice bit of time on his previous fast lap. Obviously, Will Inglis further down the order improving as well. Quite a busy track in this qualifying session. There isn't really one sector of the circuit that's looking empty, so all the drivers are trying to use as much of this track as possible. As we will go on board, we haven't seen him yet in qualifying session. Matt Daly actually possibly using a little bit of a slipstream down the back straight to be helping him. That might be hampering him through the some of the more high-speed corners. Of course, the benefit of the extra downforce compared to the FAO1 is obviously easy to see in the high-speed corners, but you do have the downside of more dirty air, as you see Barry Clayton getting out of the way of Matt Daly now. Matt Daly not on for an improvement in this lap. We've now just got 7 minutes in qualifying remaining, so the track will be getting just a little bit grippier towards the end of the session. The drive's starting to get a little bit more confidence in the new car, maybe starting to reduce the fuel loads even less as they try to go for basically one-shot quali stints. Everyone in qualifying currently on the soft tyre. We would see in the FAO1 everyone, maybe a couple of people trying the medium tyre, see if they could get that to work, or maybe treat it as a little bit of practice for the race. Maybe they're more comfortable with the bringing the tyres into the window, but it looks like everyone opting for the soft so far. That may just be down to Kyalami itself, or we may see that as a pattern emerging later on through the season. The high-speed cars. There's a lot of rotation on the back end of Matt Daly's car as he heads into turn 1 then. It was very nice to see. I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but if it was, it just means that these cars have got quite an impressive amount of pace. Yeah, looking brilliant, these cars. As we will go on board now let's go on board with Andrew Brammer. It looks like he's actually on an outlap, so we won't bother with that. We'll go back on board with Colin Knief. Colin Knief just heading through Sector 1 now. They're not on for an improvement in Sector 1. He's coming through Sector 2 now as he heads round into Mineshaft at the very kind of bottom of the circuit. He has a little bit of elevation change to contend with as he comes up into the Crocodiles. Some great circuit names here, great corner names rather here at Kyalami. We see the brake discs glowing red hot under braking into the Crocodiles. Quite a good looking car mod this one is as he heads into the final corner now, head through Cheetah and into the final corner. It's not an improvement in Sector 2 unfortunately for Colin as he runs down the exit into the start-finish line. He does improve in Sector 3 though, by the looks of things, by just 6,000ths of a second. He's slightly improved his lap time there, but it looks like Andrew Whitehead could be getting even closer on this attempt. Personal best in Sector 1, not a purple sector like it was on the previous lap unfortunately for him, but let's watch him head through up into Crocodiles at the end of Sector 2 now. See him come towards the end of the lap now. See the green light on top of the halo. I did go and learn what that meant. The LED does actually mean something. I just can't unfortunately remember what it was. I think it's something to do with push to pass. Apologies, I have since forgotten, having done my research. I believe the regular version of his car using the V6 engine. I think we were debating putting an Alfa engine of some derivative in, about 400 horsepower odd. Unfortunately, we have decided to go with the regular one just by the sounds of things. Hopefully you are hearing that well. I'll check in that in just a second as we go on board with Matt Daly, because Matt Daly is on for quite a decent lap here in personal best in Sector 1. As we see someone making contact there, Andrew Brammer has collided with a couple of things in this qualifying session by the looks of things. Of course, this is a new car, very difficult to learn, especially if you're used to the FAO one, which we've had for 3 seasons now. As Matt Daly improves to go personal best in Sector 2 as well, as we see him coming to the end of the lap. Going through into Crocodiles, Mr. Will Harper having a little bit of issues in his lap here. It's told me he's personal best Sector 2, but that happened actually before he got to the end of Sector 2, according to what was on screen. And so we'll have to see how this affects his lap as he comes across the line. Finds half a second in that lap. That's a really nice bit of progression from Matt Daly in this qualifying session. Still a couple of tenths away from Colin Knief. Colin Knief absolutely flying with that early lap that he put in. Does improve it with that tiny extra improvement he found by about 6,000ths of a second. Unfortunately, he'd been wanting to make more of a gains if he wants to be absolutely comfortable at the end of this qualifying session. We saw countless times, well, not countless times, we saw on a number of occasions in the previous season, Colin Knief would absolutely dominate a qualifying session. Matt Daly would turn up and pretty much on the final possible lap he could have made, right on the few seconds he would cross the line, just as the timing system hit 0, and put in an absolute blistering lap after Colin Knief had left the session feeling like he had pole sorted, and Matt Daly would be able to just snatch it right at the very end, as we see Guy Swarbrick having a little bit of an incident there. Again, another very nice livery on these cars here. All liveries looking great. As I mentioned before, my favourite goes to Andrew Whitehead, though. As we see Matt Daly coming to the end of this qualifying stint, and I imagine now this next qualifying stint will be everyone's final stint. As we see Will Inglis currently P12 in qualifying, not able to push further up through the order at the moment. He'll be wanting to find that extra 500ths of a second, in fact that extra 600th of a second, because that'll leapfrogging up into P10. That'll be a very nice improvement if he can find just those few hundredths of a second there. As we go on board with George Brooke Battersby, see some traffic getting out of the way for him there. Personal best Sector 3 on that previous lap, currently in P5, very close to Barry Clayton, out in front. Barry Clayton currently in the pits, getting ready for his final part of qualifying now. This qualifying session going very quickly, obviously having a couple of technical issues. Wouldn't be technical issues, it wouldn't be a season in Formula. I also see a big snap for George Brooke Battersby on the exit of the corner there. This car obviously not entirely forgiving on the absolute limit, obviously so quick that it can go quite wrong at such high speeds. You're carrying so high speeds in this car there, and it's went a little bit wrong for him. He will have to head into the pit and try and get out as quickly as possible if he can. I don't think he will at this point, unfortunately. He's not going to be able to return to the pit in time, and obviously his controls will be locked as well. Currently no one on for a fast lap then, apart from Andrew Whitehead, who's just come through the end of Sector 1 now then, as he heads into the clubhouse bend now. On the exit of the corner, mashing the throttle down. Obviously these cars having quite a bit more torque and a bit more power than the Tartus FAO1, powered by that multi-air engine that we're used to for so long, so drivers probably have to be a little bit more careful with the throttle application in this car. So we see a little bit of understeer for Andrew Whitehead there, ruining this lap. He'll have another attempt if he can get round in time. He's heading through mineshaft now, so quite close to the end of the lap. He should have another attempt in there if he so desires. But yeah, that was a little bit of a confidence destroyer for him, I imagine. Hopefully tyres back in their window now. He's getting closer and closer, only 0.16 of a second off the pace of Colin Knief, rather. So it looks like we're going to be for quite an interesting battle at the front of the field. Let's see how everyone navigates lap 1. Hopefully everyone navigates lap 1 in a clean fashion. But Colin Knief, right at the end of the session, didn't look like that lap was really going to be good, so I wasn't focusing it that much. Sector 1 and Sector 2 weren't his best, but then absolutely stormed his way through Sector 3 to find an extra 0.4 of a second. Very important at this stage in qualifying. Andrew Whitehead's now going to find an extra over half a second to secure pole position, and that is a big ask with this being his final attempt now. Let's stay on both of them as he completes his final lap of the circuit in qualifying, setting himself up for the sunset. That right-hander driving over the curb there to use as much of that track as possible. You carry as much speed as he dares, heading through Clubhouse Bend now, opposite facing direction to sunset now on the exit of the corner onto full throttle now, and it's not an improvement in Sector 1 for him. It is an improvement in Sector 2 for Matt Daly. Matt Daly is heading through on his final lap of the session now, so it will be a very interesting battle at the top of the field here. Speaking of improvements, Will Inglis currently in P5. He's had a very nice improvement towards the end of the session, currently in P5 with the personal best Sector 2. But let's see, can Andrew Whitehead at the end of Sector 2 improve? He doesn't improve. Can he pull a Colin Knieve and at the very end of the session there come to the end and steal pole position? He's going to have a big ass though to take that much time out in just Sector 3 alone. He comes up to the final corner now and onto the throttle as quickly as he dares. Let's see, I don't think it will be pole position for Andrew Whitehead as he comes across the line, and it is not an improvement, unfortunately. That wasn't the lap that he would have wanted. Who else is on track at the moment? So currently the only other car on track is Will Inglis, so unless Will Inglis can find a couple of seconds in Sector 3, and Will Inglis is a quick driver and he's not going to be doing it via that route, that is for sure. That is a little bit of rallycross in the new car, just testing out its suspension capabilities, important part of testing the new chassis there. Unfortunately, brings an end to Will Inglis's qualifying session as well. So it is for round 1 of the 2022 Halfords Formula Alpha Championship. Colin Knieve sits on pole here at Kyalami. He will be running down the kink, down that downhill straight into Crowthorne, hopefully leading the race for him. He needs a good launch if he wants to secure a good win here. Times will there will be a very telling race, the first race in a new car in the first race in this season, and that was quite an exciting qualifying session. It's got me all ready for the race coming in just a moment. Let's see how these drivers deal with lap 1 in a brand new car. I will see you in just a moment when we get underway here at Kyalami. And you've just seen the old Tarsus FA1. In case you forgot what it looked like, in case you missed the car, there is the old Tarsus FA1, so you're welcome for that. And we have just under a minute until lights out. A tweak of the audio levels, and the drivers all lined up on the grid for what will be the inaugural race start for this season. It looks like it's going to be a good one. The drivers getting used to a new car to launch off the line. It will be very interesting to see how it compares to the Tartus off the line, as we have just under 30 seconds until lights out. We start to hear those V6 engines revving, or we should hear them a little bit more now, thanks to the audio tweaks. We have Colin Cleef lined up on pole, Andrew Whitehead in second position, Matt Eddy in third, and Barry Clayton running in P4 at the moment. By the looks of things, I'll have to double check that, as we have unfortunately some connection issues for a driver there. That is a shame, right before the session is due to start. Hopefully he can get back in time, but that doesn't matter, because for the first time in 2022 we have 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. Colin Knief getting a very nice launch there. The back end just getting a little bit squirrely. There's big contact between Barry Clayton and Colin Knief, and the cameras not wanting to carry on there. They are joined back just in a amount of time, but looks like Barry Clayton and Matt Daly looks possibly. Yeah, Matt Daly came off worse from that by the looks of things. Colin Knief getting a nice getaway, about half a second clear of Andrew Whitehead already. Alan Matthews promoted up into third position, as we have Mr. Will Harper now up into P6 as Guy Swarbrick drops down to P9. John Baker down to P9. Matt Daly now in P12. Let's see how he recovers through this race. We've still got 25 minutes to go, so he's got plenty of time to make up for that start there. Colin Knief already a second clear of the rest of the field. He's had a very nice getaway as he heads up into the clubhouse bend through the S's now, and Andrew Brammer getting past Guy Swarbrick further down. Guy Swarbrick looking like he's having a couple of issues, unfortunately, for him there, but he's able to carry on, which is good to see. Now down into P12. Rob Whitney also not having the best getaway, now side by side with Guy Swarbrick as they head up through the S's and now down towards Mineshaft. Which is the Andrew Brammer now down to P9, battling with John Baker. Plenty of battles going on throughout the field, throughout the midfield is where the battles seem to be at their peak at the moment, as down under the brakes there. Oh, very close. Look, it's just got a little bit hot on the brakes there. The back end didn't like it and nearly collected John Baker, but now he is battling with Matt Daly side by side, wheel to wheel. Gets pushed onto the gravel as Matt Daly goes round and takes the overtaking position there, and now starts back down the start finish line there. George Brook Battersby now up into P6. He's got past Will Harper. He's had quite a nice start to the race there, as has Will Inglis. Will Inglis now up into P3, battling with Alan Matthews as they head through turn 1 and get ready to come into Barbecue. Again, another excellently named corner here at this track, but it must be said that Andrew Whitehead and Colin Knief have absolutely flown away by about 4 seconds already. All this battling going on has held everyone else up in comparison. Andrew Whitehead will be hoping to catch back up to Colin Knief, but let's see if he can get that move done. He'll have to, I imagine, plan for that further on into the race. We will check the tyre compounds. Everyone is running in just a second, as we see now the closest cars on track currently, Matt Daly and John Baker, as Matt Daly fights his way up through the field. He's putting some pressure on the rig, on the gearbox of John Baker now, takes the inside there, under braking, very nice move, gets him boxed off, but it looks like John Baker's trying to fight back. Can he fight back through that corner? No, I think it's a little bit too far back at this point in time, unfortunately for him, although still quite close to him, still staying up there as he's carrying a little bit more speed as he heads up towards the Crocodiles there, but once again too far back. Matt Daly very good on the defence, as we looks like Will Harper having difficulties with the car there, now drops back down to P12. What a shame to see his race come to an end like that, and he has another issue and ends up in the wall. Luckily keeps it clear of Steve Knight getting past there, as Andrew Whitehead starting to drop off just a little bit from Colin Knief. Colin Knief out in front, absolutely walking away by the looks of things, as we see him build that gap quite consistently, and he's now about 50 seconds between Colin Knief and the back of the field already, as Will Harper has to resort to entering the pits, unfortunately, so he's got some further substantial damage, I can imagine, or maybe he fancies changing tyre compound and seeing what he can recover from this race now, as we will go on board with, I was saying, the closest drivers on the track at the moment were at a point Matt Daly and John Baker. Matt Daly's driven away a little bit from John Baker now, and now fancies getting a move done on Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer running nicely in P6 at the moment. Obviously Matt Daly trying to find a way past, trying to sneak his way past. He's going to get that move done under braking there. Seems to be a favourite overtaking spot of a few drivers already, just a couple of laps in, and it's certainly a favourite of Matt Daly. That's twice now. It's worked beautifully for him. Two very well executed executed overtakes for Matt Daly, now up into P6. Excellent recovery drive so far in just a couple of laps, has made up 6 positions. Although it looks like Andrew Brammer is fancying getting the move done around the outside. Unfortunately didn't catch it on the camera just in time there, but he was a little bit too far back on this occasion. Colin Knief setting a purple sector 3 on this lap now then, as Andrew Whitehead also trying to catch up to him with his personal best laps so far. Quite an interesting start to the race there, as we things start to settle in to a little bit more of a comfortable position in terms of the gaps between the drivers, although Andrew Brammer still staying with Matt Daly as best as he can, as Willing Gliss has an issue there, tries to get out of the way as safely as possible, but well done to him for trying to make sure he doesn't affect anyone else's race there, putting his car into a wall to make sure he doesn't do so. That puts Alan Matthews back up into P3. Quite qualifying for Alan Matthews. Did a very nice job setting a good lap there, and he's benefited from that well. He's now under pressure from George Brook-Battersby, though. We saw in the endurance race, if you caught that after the weekend, George had quite a nice turn of pace in these TCRs around Bathurst, and now George is looking to have some fairly nice pace in the new Formula Alfa car here at Kyalami, as we see Colin Knief setting purple sector after purple sector as his tyres start to come into a nice window now. The fuel load will be thinking about starting to drop off in a few laps time, and he gets more and more confidence in the car with this high fuel load now. About half a second between Alan Matthews and George Brook-Battersby to come to the end of the lap. Let's see how this develops as he tries to push him further and further. It'll be interesting to see how these drivers get used to the different downforce setups on these cars, how they behave differently, and of course make use of that push-to-pass system, that we now have on the cars, as George Brook-Battersby gets a little bit squirrely on the exit of the final corner. Then he doesn't want to do that too much. He doesn't want to overwork his rear tyres or find himself facing the wrong direction, because he wants to get this move done on Alan Matthews as quickly as possible as he looks to try and get the move done down the inside. He's too far back though, because he wants to get that move done, because Matt Daly is soon catching up. Matt Daly has worked his way through the field like a knife through butter, and is now only a second behind George Brook-Battersby as we come on to the 3rd or 4th lap now. Yeah, on the 4th lap. Apologies for that one, as we see Colin Keefe just in the distance setting purple sector after purple sector on the timing system, doing an immense job in there at the moment. I want to see actually the cockpit cam. We haven't seen that yet in this car. I haven't seen much of that. We unfortunately doesn't like we're going to be able to. Guy did mention that I have been giving some new toys in terms of the camera system, some new commands to play with, and I've been trying to fathom them out, and haven't been able to do too much with them so far, and I thought it was best to not play with them too much, hence so I don't end up breaking something and end up stuck watching the pit lane or something like that. So we'll just stick to what I'm used to for now, and we'll try something a bit more exotic in round 2, which is Istanbul. By the way, some great circuits on the calendar for this year, looking to be a very exciting year. And speaking of exciting, it looks like we're going to have quite an interesting battle developing between these 3 cars now, as Matt Daly is now right on the gearbox, right on that rear wing of George Brook-Battersby. We go to start another lap now, but George is getting even closer and closer to Alan Matthews. We see Matt Daly very aggressive, using that push-to-pass system though. We see the halo, or not the halo, the air intake flashing on Matt Daly's car there to indicate that he is using that push-to-pass system. Sweeps past George Brook-Battersby, very powerful on the exit there. He gripped up just in the nick of time and hit it. I think he deployed it right at the perfect moment there to sweep past him. Quite a very interesting difference to see there. Let's see how the drivers get used to that system and start to deploy it more and more as we progress through the season. But now Matt Daly is all of a sudden very close to Alan Matthews. As for some reason we haven't quite switched to the battle going on in front of George Brook-Battersby. We now have, as we see Matt Daly going around the outside, although there's some lag there by the looks of things, and that has put him behind Alan Matthews again, and has unfortunately sent him flying off. George Brook-Battersby will be happy with that, because Matt Daly's going to have to wait to use that push-to-pass system again. Can't use it too much in a given period of time, but he's very close, so he's still going to have to work if he wants to keep this position. Has the inside line, tries to box him off an exit, squeezes him as much as he dares there anymore, and it would have been a little bit of contact. He would have been in the gravel, would have Matt Daly, but still able to carry on despite that issues he had just a few corners ago now. George Brook-Battersby getting ever closer to Alan Matthews. Was that a deployment of push to pass? I'm not sure if it was, but he seemed to get very close under braking to that car in front. I see Matt Daly also getting very close to the car in front, as it looks like contact is being made. I think there might be a couple of internet issues. I wonder if that is just on my end. I don't think it is though, according to the timing system. Looks like there's a little bit of collisions happening between Matt and George, as both Matt and George using the push-to-pass system. They're flashing on the top of the car to indicate they're using as much power as they can, and we see Matt Daly trying to take the inside line up, turn 1 there. Alan Matthews is defending it as much as he can there. Matt Daly dropping back a little bit due to lag by the looks of things, and there's contact between George and Matt. I think there's a few lag issues going on between these two drivers, because we wouldn't usually see that from these two. It's not the type of mistake we usually see, but George Batterby is now facing the wrong direction on the end, or towards the end of Sector 1. Not what we want to see, unfortunately for George. That's rather put a stop to his race. Andrew Brammer having a couple of issues now down into P12 as well. Looks like it's not Andrew Brammer, rather that is Paul Brady. Apologies, Paul, there, as we see Andrew Brammer now up into 4th as a result of George Battersby. So it's gone quite well for him, actually, all things considered. And speaking of going quite well, out in front we have Colin Knief, who's had quite a quiet race so far. We're already 10 minutes in. That 10 minutes has absolutely flown by with all this action going on. Let's see, is Colin Knief deploying the push to pass down the straight? I don't know if he can. I don't know if he can when he's out in front. I don't think he needs to, because he's got quite a nice turn of pace to him at the moment. His last lap of 1:23.1, about 3/10 clear of Andrew Whitehead behind him. Still 3.6 seconds behind. We saw that gap a few laps ago now for Andrew, and it stayed pretty consistent. So maybe he's thinking about preserving the tyres for later on, maybe trying to push towards the end, see if he can catch up to Colin Knief. Everyone in this session running these soft tyres, so the drivers having plenty of tyre life to make it to the end of this 25-minute race. As you see, these two have absolutely flown far ahead of everyone else. The further drivers further down the field, best laps, kind of a couple of 123s in there from Matt Daly, but 125s seem to be the rest of the order. Meanwhile, Andrew Whitehead and Colin Knief out in front, 22 seconds clear, 21 seconds clear of the rest of the field. They are absolutely flying out there. Andrew Whitehead is trying to push Colin as much as he can, and Colin, we'll still be able to see him in the rearview mirror every now and again, but he's got quite a nice buffer behind him. He doesn't want to make a mistake though, because one mistake will see an end to that, as we will go on board with Mr. Will Harper down in P14. I'm going to keep calling him Mr. Will Harper. It's going to alternate, I think, at this point, but I do like the name change. Fancying a battle with Paul Brady, currently in P13. We can't see him on the timing system, unfortunately, but he is there. It's right between P12 and P14. Obviously, Will getting closer and closer to Paul out in front, but it all goes wrong there. Runs a little bit wide. Wasn't expecting to see that, as we see Guy Swarbrick entering the pits. Unfortunately for him, something going wrong in this race for him, but Andrew Brammer is flying at quite a nice pace. He's just set 2 personal best sectors, so the fuel load's starting to get lighter now. We're not far away from halfway through this race already, and Andrew Brammer only 30 seconds behind Colin Knief at this point. As we see him revving all the way up there, we got that interior view that we wanted. The AROC sticker on the helmets of every driver here. That's a nice little touch there, but banging it up through the gears. Very high revving V6s in these cars by the sounds of things. Matt Daly in the pits. Wonder if that was a penalty he has to serve as a result of those incidents earlier on, but that's put a dampener on things in terms of his race, as we have some drivers getting very close out in front there. It's Andrew Brammer and Barry Clayton battling it out. I know it's not, it's Paul Brady and Will Inglis battling it out. Where is Will Inglis? Will Inglis is making contact with Paul Brady. Is Will Inglis? Will Inglis is lapped down from Paul Brady, and at turn 1 they've come together. Paul Brady getting a little bit affected by that. It looks like he's going to be able to stay ahead of Steve Knight at this point, but won't be as close to Barry Clayton up in P7, P8 rather, as he would have wanted. A fair amount of collision on Paul Brady's car, actually. A little bit of damage that he's going to have to deal with for the rest of this race, as Colin Knief sets his personal best lap of this race, a 1:23 flat. That's a very nice lap from Colin at this point, about 6 cents clear of Andrew Whitehead behind him. So he's running at quite a decent pace, getting more and more familiar with this brand new car for this new season. We are we are the trendsetters. We were last season. We were the first to go to Zandvoort. We went there before, the new Zandvoort layout before Formula 1 did, and this year we are trying some new cars, some brand new chassis before Formula 1 gets some track action with the new chassis for the coming year. I think these cars look a little bit better than the new Formula 1 chassis, to be honest, although we haven't seen what the proper ones are going to look like. Let's see that in a few months' time. Meanwhile, the Formula Alpha Championship will be raging on in the heat of battle, as we see Barry Clayton getting closer to Will Inglis now. He's going to be starting to think about deploying that push-to-pass system. Tries to go down the inside, is a little bit too far back though. Can't get the moves on there, but can he get the switchback done? It looks like Will Inglis are trying to defend clean air by the looks of things, or just misjudged turn 1, and Barry Clayton was thinking about a move around the outside on the exit, still too far back unfortunately for him though. Paul Brady struggling with the car by the looks of things now got some fairly substantial damage, and we'll have to watch to see how the drivers contend with aero damage, because it was the case on the Tartus that you could, look, that car looks fairly unhappy at this point unfortunately for Paul. He's had a very good debut, otherwise a shame to see his race turn out the way that it has in this case, as we see Barry Clayton getting past him now. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the drivers contend with damage, because we saw in the Formula Alpha Championship, if cars came together, we would basically leave it. It'd be very rare you'd have to pit for actual damage to the wings, especially based on certain tracks like Monza, for example. As we see, Paul Brady flying off there. That car is not looking happy anymore. What a shame to see his race come to an end like this. But yes, we'd see the Tarsus F1 basically be able to carry on with a fairly substantial amount of damage, and that doesn't look to be the case for the new RSS Formula Supreme so far, as Barry Clayton thought about a move there, got a little bit too brave and nearly ended up making contact with Willing Bliss or ending up in a wall. You see Rob Whitney currently running P6, leading this train of cars at the moment. Behind him, behind them is Paul Millman currently in P10. Steve Knight in P9 as well, a few occupying his own little space on track at the moment, having a very nice race in P10 at the moment. Looks like Andrew Whitehead has dropped off from the back of Colin Knief just a little bit now about 5.2 seconds in that very nice Monza 2021 Alfa Sauber inspired livery, as he comes up to Matt Daly in order to lap him. Matt Daly has not had the start to his championship fight that he would have wanted. I imagine he wants a little bit of redemption this year, obviously winning the first half of the years running did Matt Daly, and then Colin Knief ended up taking the title in the second half. Matt Daly wants to try and repeat this for the first half of this year, I am sure, as Andrew Whitehead goes purple in Sector 3. It looks like George Brabazby having a little bit of difficulties further down the order. Looks like he's got some fairly substantial front wing damage there. Yes, he does. What a shame to see his race come to an effective end the way it has here. Currently, drivers on the lead lap, then we have 10 drivers on the lead lap, with Colin Knief leading the order. We have we have Andrew Whitehead currently running P2, Alan Matthews having a very nice race in P3. He has to fight for it at the start of the race, but he finds himself currently in P3, a lock-up from Paul Brady in front of him there as we get quite close on the exit of turn 1. Alan Matthews going around the outside, Paul Brady having major difficulties with that car at this point. I'm not sure if he's going to think about retiring in just a second, and focusing his thoughts on race 2 coming up in just a few moments time already. This race has absolutely flown by. How exciting it is to see these brand new cars, 550 horsepower, barreling around the excellent track that is Kyalami. I hope we see Kyalami in F1 at some point again in the future. It is a bit of a travesty that it's not here in F1. I imagine it would provide some excellent racing. Reminds me in quite a few ways of Imola, mainly just the shape of it more than anything. Although we have the elevation change as well, some of the kinks down the straight and the corners, etc, etc, as Colin Knief beats his previous best and the best of the race so far by 2/10, a 1:22.8 for Colin Knief, as it looks like John Baker and Rob Whitney have had a coming together there. Rob Whitney coming out in front in that one by the looks of things. I know he hasn't actually. John Baker has left him for dead just a little bit there. Unfortunately, both cars carrying some substantial aero damage here. We could see aero damage play a lot more, as I was mentioning just a second ago, a lot more of a part in this year's running when compared to the relatively simplistic in terms of aero Tartus FA01 car. As we see George Brabazby entering the pit, he may be choosing just spectate at this point. Steve Knight currently leading a little pack here. It is Paul Millman. Paul Millman down the inside, able to get past Steve Knight. In the meantime, Colin Knief currently leading this race, dealing with this lapped traffic while this excellent battle is going on between the two lapped cars. Not losing too much pace, so importantly for Colin, because that is the type of thing that Andrew Whitehead would like to see. Andrew Whitehead would like to see these type of battles holding Colin up, but unfortunately for Andrew, it hasn't done that by any stretch of the imagination there. As we see Steve dropping off just a little bit from Rob Whitney in P8 and Paul Millman in P9 now, as we will go and check how the AM race is doing. Actually, it's John Baker currently doing very nice up in P6, leading the AM race, battling with Barry Clayton in P7, as we see side by side heading into the left-hander there. John Baker having the inside line, riding over the curb, so the car gets a little bit upset, nearly ends up in the wall, or nearly faces the wrong direction. Luckily able to catch it. I imagine these cars are a little bit more difficult to catch than the FA01, although drivers seem to be fairly happy with the drivability of this car, given the extra pace that we have on tap and the substantial boost in power. We go from the 170 brake of the mighty 1.4 multi-air engine all the way to 550 horsepower in the RSS Supreme. As we see, this is the closest little pack on track at the moment, led by Will Inglis. Nearly invented a driver then. Apologies, Will, as Matt Daly gets past Steve Knight. Matt Daly back up into the points, especially in the pro race as well, as he wants to get a little bit closer to Rob Whitney out in front, I am sure. This is the only 2 seconds separating John Baker and Barry Clayton. John Baker running with a nice pace. Barry Clayton able to get past with that little incident that John had earlier on, as we see Andrew Whitehead behind looking to lap John Baker now. So those two front runners absolutely flying with just over 5 minutes to go in this race now. Colin Keefe setting a purple sector 2, as we see Andrew Whitehead getting past John Baker there. John Baker now not too, it looks like that is actually Guy Swarbrick, so Guy Swarbrick not on the same lap as John there, so shouldn't be too much battling between the two, unless they feel like having a little bit of fun, a little bit of battle. No harm in that at all, as we see Barry Clayton setting a personal best, sector 1, so he seems to have found a bit of pace towards the end of this race actually. Not that he wasn't already, but it seems to have unlocked a little bit of potential, maybe if he can start to feel a little bit more confident in his car as the fuel loads come to the end of the stint in terms of fuel, getting a little bit lighter there. And obviously the tyres may actually be quite... I haven't unfortunately been able to speak to the drivers in terms of how the tyres feel towards the end of the stint. It may be the case that the car actually looks after the very wide tyres quite well, especially around a circuit like Kyalami, although I would have presumed that the surface, although it may have been the case that this mod isn't too aggressive in terms of tyre wear. So we have about 5 seconds between Andrew Brammer running a tweaked version of the Honda Earth Dreams livery that we saw last year. That was a favourite in the commentary box. It is still a favourite here. Looks great, but as I mentioned a few times already, favourite goes to Andrew Whitehead as Guy Swarbrick overtakes someone entering the pit. Paul Brady has to pit, I imagine, retiring that car, or at least trying to repair it owing to some fairly substantial damage. Barry Clayton now in P6. He's just had an absolutely blistering lap. His personal best there, 124.3, so the time's really starting to come down now for these drivers to get a little bit more confident and the fuel load to get lighter. Same for Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer running P4 as we just watching him there. Only 5 seconds behind Alan Matthews. I think he's going to have difficulty catching up unless there's an error for Alan Matthews at this stage in the race, which will be a shame to see. He's had a very nice race so far. And we will go on board with Colin Keefe. Colin Keefe hasn't had much camera attention, as he often doesn't at these race weekends, because he does a very good job of executing a nice race at the start and just kind of leaving the rest of the field, stays out of trouble, and doesn't get too much of the limelight, unfortunately for him. About 8 seconds clear of everyone else at the moment, so he is putting his cards on the table, so to speak, at the start of this season, and showing that he has got pace in this car. About 9 seconds nearly clear of Andrew Whitehead as he comes towards the end of the lap now, heading through Mineshaft rather, and up towards the Crocodiles. It looks to be quite a deceptive part of the track actually. I wouldn't say, or maybe I'm just used to the FA01, I wouldn't say you want to go completely flat out, although the FA01 was arguably so slow in a straight line. You could go fairly aggressive with the throttle everywhere, as we see Matt Daly getting past Paul Millman now up into P9, so he's still on a recovery drive, not the recovery drive that he wanted to make. He wanted to be on the lead lap and wanted to be fighting for potentially a podium even. We've seen it before from Matt Daly, not having the best start to race, but ending up in a very nice finishing position. Speaking of very nice finishing position, we were just on board with him there. Colin Keefe leading the race at the moment, 2 purple sectors on that previous lap. Let's see him come towards the end of this one. We're a little bit too far back to see him come towards the end of this one, having just finished that one there. 122.6, so the best of the session so far for Colin on that previous lap. As we see more drivers entering the pits. Maybe a fueling issue perhaps. Drivers are not quite used to the fuel loads, although they have had plenty of practice and have been discussing such things as setups, fuel loads and tyre degradation. So I would have thought there would have been prepared in terms of that type of situation, but you never know. You never know what a new season, a new car is going to throw at you. As we see Colin Keefe over 10 seconds ahead of the rest of the field now. He is absolutely dominating this race, and I imagine he will be one to watch in the reverse grid race coming up in a few moments time now. We've only got under 2 minutes left on the timer now, as he is absolutely flying. Speaking of absolutely flying, Barry Clayton, who I mentioned before, had quite a nice turn of pace towards the end of this race, is getting very close to Willing Bliss. Willing Bliss will be starting to think about a defensive drive against Barry Clayton as he gets closer to the rear wingers. Got Barry Clayton using that push-to-pass system, looking at a way around the outside there, but he's a little bit earlier on the brakes than he needed to be if he wanted to get that outside move done. He now has the inside, though, for the next couple of corners, unless Willing Bliss chooses to defend in quite an aggressive manner there, which he isn't. He is very nice on the defence. Only a few tenths of a second behind is Barry Clayton as they head up through Sunset now. That right-hander apexing, riding over the curbs a little bit there. Barry Clayton riding over the curbs quite aggressively, taking the IndyCar line on the exit of the Clubhouse Bend there, or rather the entry into Clubhouse Bend. Still only 0.3 of a second despite that little excursion, so he is absolutely giving that car everything for what it is worth there as he looks at a move up the inside. No, he's thinking about the outside rather as we head through the S's and look at heading down towards Mineshaft now. That was a bit of word spaghetti there, but dropping back just a little bit now, obviously maybe overworking the car, maybe overworking the tyres at this stage, as we see Matt Daly now on for a personal best, in fact a purple sector in Sector 1, so the fuel load getting lighter for Matt Daly, but we're going to stay on board with the battle between Barry Clayton and Willing Bliss as they come towards the end of the lap now. A lot of defending from Willing Bliss, weaving Verstappen style as he comes towards the final corner now. They both take the inside line, but I think we're about to see Barry Clayton using that push-to-pass system to his advantage as he did at the end of the straight, but so does Willing Bliss. Willing Bliss also deploying that push-to-pass as we cross the line to start another lap here, and the timing system hits 0. We're now on the penultimate lap of this race as Colin Keneath rather comes across the line, and we're now on the final lap. It happened just in the nick of time for Colin Keneath to be on the final lap, so we'll join him in just a second, but all the battling is going on between Barry Clayton and Willing Bliss, battling it out for P5 on this final lap of the race, heading up towards Sunset now. The uphill right-hander, that uphill complex. Barry Clayton taking that wide line again, not going quite as aggressive as he did on the last lap. But we will join Colin Keneath in just a second as he is heading through Sunset himself. I just didn't realise how big the gap between Colin and Willing Bliss was. Colin has left the rest of the field by the tune of 1 minute and 15 seconds. There makes no difference. He's absolutely flying out there, but so is Barry Clayton trying to find a way past Willing Bliss. Willing Bliss putting on a very nice defensive drive at this stage in the race, so I imagine the tyres on entirely happy, and he may be thinking about conserving fuel if he has to, but he might have been fairly conservative on the fuel, as I imagine a few drivers have at the start of this season. As I don't think Barry Clayton's going to be able to find a way past at this point here. I think he's too far back, unfortunately, for Barry here. As we come towards the end of the lap now, we're going to go on board with Colin Keneath as Colin Keneath heads up towards the final corner now. As we have Skip, we have a session vote in progress. That is something I've not seen before. But is Colin Keneath heading around the final corner for the final time in race 1 as he weaves across the start-finish line to celebrate an impressive victory, leaving the rest of the field behind there, and really putting his cards on the table, really showing his impressive pace at the very start of this season, looking very confident in his brand new car. Andrew Whitehead coming across the line to take P2. Very nice start to the season for him as well. Not the one that he would have wanted. He would have wanted to get past Colin at the start of this race here, but still very good of him to end up so clear of the rest of the field there. We're going to go aboard with Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews executing a very nice race, using the push to pass to make up for that little error he just had on the exit of the corner there. Very nice to see that push to pass, able to rescue a couple of laps there potentially if mistakes are made. As we see him coming down towards the final corner now, heading through Cheetah and into the final corner, a few seconds clear of Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer also running a very nice race behind him, round the final corner now, with Andrew Brammer rounding out the podium here at Kyalami for race 1 and the inaugural weekend of this season. Crossing the line to take P3, Alan Matthews starts his season well. Andrew Brammer coming across line himself, only a few seconds behind Alan Matthews at the end of this race. He would have wanted a few more laps to see if he could have caught up to that car in front. Willing Bliss and Barry Clayton still battling it out, as it looks like it's going to be Willing Bliss coming across the line for the final time up in P5. Maybe Barry Clayton can deploy that push to pass just in the right moment. Will he be able to? No, I think he's too far back, unfortunately. Willing Bliss crosses the line P5, and commiserations to Barry Clayton for a very well battled race there. Didn't end up taking P5 in the end, comes home with P6, and the final car on the lead lap, Rob Whitney coming home in P7 there. John Baker P8, Matt Daly P9, and Steve Knight P10. It is John Baker who takes the AM race win by the looks of things. Yes, it is. Well done to John for the first win of the season for you there, as we have Colin Knief also unfortunately not celebrating his first win with donuts. Usually I like to see some victory donuts. We're not going to get that this evening, unfortunately. We still have another race to go. So after an exciting start to the season here, I'll see you in just a few minutes' time for race 2 here at Kyalami. And welcome back to the action here at Kyalami. We've got just under a minute to light out, and unfortunately I appear to have found myself inside a concrete wall, which is an interesting way to watch the race, but I can still give you the information about what's happening on the grid. It is Guy Swarbrick on pole, leading that AM race. Then from pole there we have Mr. Will Harper currently in P2, Paul Millman P3, Steve Knight P4, Matt Daly in P5, he'll be one to watch out for on the start of this race, John Baker P6, Rob Whitney P7, Barry Clayton P8, Will Inglis P9, Andrew Rammer P10, Colin Knief all the way down in P13. Let's see how he negotiates this field, especially with Andrew Whitehead in front. This will be a very exciting race to see the new cars, the new push-to-pass system, and see how that works within a reverse grid race. Just over 10 seconds until lights out then, and we are still unfortunately inside a concrete wall, but that will be sorted in just a second when we are able to take control of the camera once again. It is 6 red lights on the gantry, the revs beginning to rise as drivers get ready to launch off the field, and we see them, which is very nice. Big contact for everyone there. Not sure there was a bit of lag involved for a few drivers there. It looks like Matt Daly also having a little bit of a bump, and it wasn't Matt Daly, it was Barry Clayton rather. We can't quite see the order yet, but it is still it's Will Inglis in P6 and then Will Harper up in P2 as someone's trying quite an aggressive move there and makes contact with the car in front. I believe that was Barry Clayton perhaps, or Paul Grady, Andrew Brammer rather it was in the end. It was Andrew Brammer and Paul Brady coming together through into turn 3 though, or turn 2 rather. What a shame to see their race start that way. Guy Swarbrick now down into P2 as Mr. Will Harper leading this race then, leading this start of the reverse grid race at this point in time. Get a very nice launch there as Alan Matthews tries to get a move done up the inside there as someone flies off the field there. It's John Baker. John Baker having quite a nasty incident with a wall there, as does Colin Knief. Colin Knief, the winner of the last race, rather has the start of his reverse grid race ruined. Let's see how he can press through here. And there's big contact between Alan Matthews and Paul Millman. Alan Matthews absolutely flying through the air there. The camera system trying to take control of itself for me, which is not exactly what I want at this point in the time. But that was a rather impressive amount of backflips, somersaults for Alan Matthews there, and Paul Millman and Steve Knight also off the track there. All of a sudden Matt Daly finds himself in P5. Not sure if Will Harper in all of that commotion had a bit of an incident. He did. He's now down in P7 already. That puts Guy Swarbrick back up into second place. Rob Whitney rather into P3. Will Inglis in P4 and Andrew Whitehead in P5. Meanwhile, his closest rival from the last race all the way down in P13. Well, that was certainly an action-packed start to race 2 here. Both cars heading down into turn 1 using push to pass to try and get that extra bit of top speed down the straights there. It is Andrew Whitehead who's hoping to get the better exit out of the corner there. He makes contact with Will Inglis as they head through into the sweep and get ready to head into barbecue. Excellently named corner there. And they make contact. Andrew Whitehead spins Will Inglis round, unfortunately. Very aggressive the start to race 2 here, the reverse grid race. All the drivers are no holds barred. Absolutely wheel-to-wheel action here. It's very exciting to see, but I imagine quite a few complaints from the drivers after the start to this race, unfortunately. As we see, Matt Daly now leading this race by about 2 seconds already. He is hoping to recuperate some of the points that he lost out on in race 1 here in the reverse grid race, and even up that championship fight as we come to the end of round 1. Still over 20 minutes to go though, so plenty of racing action to go yet. George Brook Battersby up into P4. He's had quite a nice start there, with Rob Whitney in P3 also having quite a nice start. Guy Swarbrick leading that AM race then from P2. His next AM competitor is John Baker all the way down in P7, second in the AM race, and he's had a very nice couple of races so far. As we see, only a few tenths of a second between Andrew Whitehead and George Brook Battersby. It seems to be so far this weekend that Andrew Whitehead's had the pace advantage so far, and he certainly does when he uses the push-to-pass system, going the inside of the kink there, able to get the move done with relative ease for Andrew Whitehead. Although is George Brook Battersby going to fight back on the braking? He thought about it, but he wasn't going to get that done, unfortunately. Playing it safe on the brakes there, Andrew Whitehead able to just sweep past on the braking and take P4 now, as Andrew Whitehead will be one to watch as he tries to work his way up through the field, starting to battle with Rob Whitney perhaps, and start to battle with Guy Swarbrick as well. Could find himself on the podium again, could end up with 2 very nice results from this weekend and have quite the championship result really, because Colin Knief still out of the points down in P12 at the moment, well, obviously not out of the points in the pro race, but side by side with Paul Brady as he tries to move up into P11 and gets that move done before he heads into sunset. Very nice move from Colin Knief there. I imagine he's exercising that car there, trying to see what it is capable of, with a little bit more kind of gusto behind him, a little bit more pressure on him now compared to race 1, where he's able to walk away from the rest of the field. He's really got his work cut out for him now as we go on board with Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead setting a purple sector 1 there. He's being spurred on by the cars out in front of him. He knows he's got the pace to keep up with him and make an overtake, especially if the battle between Guy Swarbrick and Rob Whitney develops in the way that it is currently doing. These two could be on for a very nice battle here, although Andrew Whitehead's going to sweep past Rob Whitney, under braking into the final corner there. Excellent move from Andrew Whitehead, all the way, look, miles back, heading towards the exit of Cheetah there. He looked too far back to even consider a move, but 3 seconds clear of Rob Whitney on that previous lap. He is in a league of his own at the moment on track, although Rob Whitney's thinking about a fight back, under braking. Very nice attempt at a move there, unfortunately. Very well defended from Andrew Whitehead, as well as we have a big crash going on further down the order by the looks of things. I believe it is John Baker. Is that John Baker and Andrew Rammer? It is, both carrying some front wing damage, able to carry on though, as we are side by side now with Guy Swarbrick and Andrew Whitehead, as we see Guy Swarbrick getting a little bit twitchy on the entry into sunset, riding that curb, car getting a little bit upset, but no one coming together, which is good to see, as Andrew Whitehead looking at a way around the outside there, and he does get a way around the outside on the exit, goes up into P2, heads into the S's ahead of Guy Swarbrick now, as he looks to head towards into sector 2 now, into the depths of sector 2, about 9 seconds down on Matt Daly. So all this battling has cost him a little bit. Matt Daly able to walk away, as did Colin Knief in race 1. Guy Swarbrick getting a little bit wrong there, maybe come together with someone. I didn't quite see that, unfortunately. Now down into P4, he's going to be under pressure from Rob Whitney in just a moment's time, as George Batterby out of nowhere sweeps up onto the podium. Very nice to see his race going so well for him so far. Will Inglis up into P8 now, ahead of John Baker. So John Baker still second position in that AM race so far, but his advantage to the rest of the cars behind him is slowly diminishing, as Colin Knief into P10 now, into what will be a point scoring position, looking at a move ahead of John Baker now as he comes towards the end of the lap. He's going to have to go around the outside, because imagine John Baker is going to try and defend that, and he does defend that quite nicely. A lock-up for Will Harper there. He started lap 1 effectively in the lead of this race, getting past Guy Swarbrick, and unfortunately towards the end of it all went wrong for him. Guy Swarbrick now down into P5 as well. He at some point also led this race, starting on pole position, but now he's under pressure from Barry Clayton, having Rob Whitney having just overtaken him there. Now under pressure from Barry Clayton. Colin Knief up into P9, but gets it a little bit wrong. I can't see if there was contact, unfortunately. I was focusing on the timing system, and Colin Knief now spinning the wrong direction. This is not the race 2 that he wanted after such a clean and solid and excellent performance in race 1. Race 2 has been a bit of a disaster, it must be said. We don't see races like this often from Colin Knief, and he's down in P12 now, a few seconds clear, a few seconds apart from everyone else, it must be said. Paul Mimble in the pits as well, so his nearest competitor is Paul Brady, rather. I'm going to keep making that mistake a couple of times until I get used to it, unfortunately. 3 seconds clear, or 3 seconds behind, rather, Paul Brady. And Matthews back out on track then, quite a few seconds behind everyone else at the moment. This race 2, even with all the incidents, much closer than race 1 at the start was. And Barry Clayton, the back end gets away from Barry Clayton. Guy Swarbrick not able to stop in time. No one's fault there, really. It's just a racing incident. Guy Swarbrick now up into P5, but with a little bit of front wing damage for his troubles. I can see there quite a catastrophic amount of front wing damage, as Andrew Whitehead goes fastest there. George Procrassby up into P3. Barry Clayton getting it wrong again. Something wrong with his car, quite clearly, as it looks like. I think he's thinking of retiring or returning to the pits here, which is a shame to see. What could have been a good race. He had an excellent race in race 1, much like Colin Knief, but unfortunately race 2 hasn't panned out the way that he would have wanted. Matt Daly then still about 9 seconds clear of Andrew Whitehead out in front, or behind rather. He has pretty much cleared the rest of the field now. I can now focus on trying to catch up to Matt Daly in front of him. Closest battle on track then at the moment is between Andrew Brammer and Will Inglis, as Will Inglis is trying to catch up to Andrew Brammer in front of him, but it looks like he's going to have his work out for him, because Andrew Brammer has got a nice turn of pace to him. Personal best in sector 1, in sector 2 on the previous lap, and personal best again on this lap in sector 1 as it comes to the end of sector 1, and we enter sector 2 now as we head towards the S's. Colin Knief back up into P10, so certainly got the pace to be a front-running driver. Unfortunately, not had the luck to be a front-running driver at the start of this race, as we are once again already nearly 10 minutes into this race. Time flies when you are having fun, and these cars certainly are fun to watch as we stop the 6 laps. The 6th lap of about 20 potentially in this reverse grid race. 19 or 20 is what we should expect with the current pace of the cars. Matt Daly leading the race then, matching pretty much the pace of Andrew Whitehead, which is certainly encouraging for Andrew Whitehead. Matt Daly's best lap is a little bit better, but Andrew Whitehead is certainly up there. Colin Kneath past Will Harper up into P9 now. Will Harper, what a shame to see his race go the way that it has so far. We've seen a few races in the last season that really did play to Will Harper's hands. Ended up on the podium a couple of times and had quite a good end to the year last season. Unfortunately, this season hasn't started the way he wanted, and it certainly doesn't with that amount of snap oversteer as Paul Brady had. Paul Brady realised it was going to end up in the wall quite quickly there, and very kind of cunningly stamped on the brakes, locking all four wheels by the looks of things, but more importantly keeping his car out of the wall. I think he's got enough front wing damage anyway that it won't matter too much, and now he's under pressure from, is that a lapped car there? That is the lapped car of Steve Knight, under pressure from him as Steve Knight laps himself using push to pass down the inside, under braking. Quite a clean move from Steve Knight there to unlap himself, or start to unlap himself, as he has just Alan Matthews on the lead lap to contend with. Swarbrick now down into P7 as Andrew Brammer able to sweep around the outside there. A little bit of an error from Guy Swarbrick on corner entry by the looks of things. Andrew Brammer up into P6 now, as we see quite a close battle actually going on between from winning list down to Colin Kneath. It's only about 5 seconds, which is quite good at this stage in the races. Colin Kneath is desperately trying to find a way past John Baker in the in P2 in that AM race at the moment. We're going to have quite a nice battle for the AM race, I imagine, coming up in just a second, as Colin Kneath eventually finds a way round the outside and up into P8 now for Colin Kneath. Let's see what is the pace delta between Guy Swarbrick and John Baker. That is going to be something that's quite interesting to watch. I can tell you that it is not that big by the looks of things at the moment. Correct me if I am wrong. I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. No, it isn't actually. Guy Swarbrick's best lap about a second clear, but in terms of on-track pace at the moment, John Baker is absolutely flying ahead of Guy Swarbrick, so we're about to see quite an interesting battle develop between these two drivers, as it looks like Guy Swarbrick letting Colin Kneath get past there very courteously of him then. Although, yeah, Guy Swarbrick not having the best lap on that previous lap by the looks of things. Now behind Colin Kneath in P8 with John Baker breathing down his neck in just a few laps time, I can imagine. Only about a second between these drivers at the moment, second half, based on where they are on this circuit. And John Baker certainly has a good amount of pace behind him and will be trying to catch up for the lead of the AM race. If he can get a double win there, he will be having quite a solid start to the season, that is for sure. As, like we saw in race 1, the leader of the race able to, not quite as cleanly as Colin Kneath did, obviously all the commotion on lap on, but Matt Daly able to work his way up through the order from about P5 up into P1 and then just walk away from the rest of the field. Obviously Barry Clayton unfortunately having to retire from the session. Yeah, but Andrew Whitehead about 10 seconds behind, and it's unfortunately a bit of a repeat for Andrew Whitehead this race. Not the race that he would have wanted, because he wants that victory, but I suppose he can take solace in the fact that even if it is quite a negative kind of feeling for him, it's still potentially a double podium. We are only about halfway through this race, so don't count anything out yet. If the action at the start of race 2 was anything to go by, we could still have plenty of twists and turns yet, as Will Harper up into P9 gets past Guy Swarbrick, as does John Baker. Guy Swarbrick looking like he's having a couple of issues with the car, unfortunately. Now down into P10, no longer in the lead of that AM race, as Will Harper has quite the lock-up actually heading into the final corner. Guy Swarbrick nearly having an opportunity to get past there and maybe thinking about deploying that push to pass system. Let's watch him as we head through the kink and down towards turn 1. No one using that push to pass system at the moment, as Will Harper leads this little duo heading into turn 1. And there's a big crash between Steve Knight and Paul Brady by the looks of things, or they are just making contact as they are battling it out, both carrying some aero damage. It'll be interesting to see what the pace of these cars is on a low fuel load with decent tyres without some aero damage. We saw that from Colin Kneath at the end of the first race, and unfortunately we didn't see it in this race so far for many drivers. I imagine quite a few carrying some aero damage at this stage in the race, as we stay on board with John Baker now, as he is in a nice little bit of his own air, I was about to say, but he is actually only about half a second behind him is Will Harper. Will Harper putting a lot of pressure on John Baker now, right on the rear wing of John as they head up towards Mineshaft, one of the highest elevation points of the circuit, and John Baker gets a little bit wrong on the entry into the corner before Mineshaft and ends up going off into the gravel. That brings Guy Swarbrick back into view and gets a little bit closer, as we see someone going off there. Who's that who's gone off? It is Will Harper. Will Harper struggling with the car at some points, then got some substantial front wing damage, facing the wrong direction. He wants to get off the track as quickly as possible, because actually he should have plenty of time to do that. But yes, this race not going Will Harper's way at all. What a shame to see him go from the lead all the way down to P10 now, carrying some rear wing damage for his troubles as well, with that little bump into the wall there. Paul Brady now up into P10, so a little bit better of a race in race 2 here than race 1 was for him. Fewer drivers ending up in the pit, which is good to see. Another collision for Will Harper. I think he might be having a setup issue or something. Alan Matthews, after a very good race 1, not had the race 2 to remember really, up now into P11 owing to Will Harper's troubles, but that in the background was Matt Daly. Matt Daly absolutely flying, getting ready to lap another car potentially. As we have, yes, definitely fewer lapped cars in race 2 here this weekend, but still the Matt Daly absolutely flying out there at the moment. His best lap, that 1:23 flat, we saw near enough the same pace from Colin Knief at about this stage in the race. His last lap only a few tenths off that, so he's not having to push too hard in order to get the pace advantage on everyone else. As we see, another disconnection there, unfortunately. Andrew Whitehead still about 10 seconds clear, or 10 seconds behind Matt Daly, but 10 seconds clear of George Brook-Battersby. George Brook-Battersby having a better race this time, up into P3 now, in a nice little area there. Everyone's starting to find a more comfortable part on the track that they can occupy. They run at their own pace, and not too much in the way of contact or major action going on at the moment in the halfway point of this race, but that is good sometimes. It's good for my voice, and it's good for the cars as well. Obviously the tyres not having to work too hard, the drivers not having to work too hard in order to keep themselves on track or keep their position. Steve Knight promoted into P12 following that disqualification, or that DNF there rather, as John Baker behind Andrew Brammer setting his best lap of the race so far. Matt Daly setting a purple sector as well in sector 2. If you can have a very good sector 3 as well, I imagine this will be a fairly good attempt from him. Let's say on board with him as he comes up towards the final corner, heading through Cheetah now into the heavy braking zone for the final bend there. You want to be on the throttle as cleanly as possible. You want to build up that power, build up that speed, but at the same time you don't want to kick the back end that we saw with Paul Brady nearly ending up in the wall on the end of the lap there. Doesn't improve this time, 123.4, but matches pretty much his current pace, so it's good to see the consistency from Matt Daly here at this stage in the race as the fuel loads start to get lighter, but the tyres get a little bit more worn out, and the brake disc glowing red hot under braking into turn 1. Then yeah, the fuel load's definitely getting lighter now, as it's green sectors everywhere for most of the drivers now, as we go on board with Rob Whitney having a very nice race in P4 at the moment. Green sector 1 rather, as he is a little bit clear of Colin Knief. Colin Knief hunting him down though, up into P5 now. Colin Knief, he wanted to be at this stage in the order a little bit earlier on, I imagine, but it looks like it's going to be happening nonetheless. Can he make 20 seconds up to the podium unless there's an error? I'm not entirely sure if that is possible, but still a decent points haul for P4 if you can get past Rob Whitney. Let's see now as this battle develops, heading down into turn 1, not utilising push to pass yet. He can't utilise it yet. Purple sector 3 for Colin Knief, so he's certainly got the pace behind him to catch up to Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney obviously developing nicely last season, now in the pro part of the running, and really enjoying these cars actually by the looks of things. He seems to have gelled well with the new car. As we head up into sunset, Colin Knief getting ever closer, less or near enough makes no difference. Half a second of a gap between the two drivers now as they head through the clubhouse bend and back onto the throttle. Both drivers go, as it looks like Rob Whitty is starting to have to prepare his defence already. Colin Knief's going to go around the outside of the S's though. Beautiful move from Colin Knief there around the outside to get that move done. Takes the inside line of the second S and up into the end of sector 2 and down into mineshaft. He is already a substantial way clear of Rob Whitney up into P4 now. Now we can set his sights on George Brook-Battersby up in P3 if he can possibly do that. It will be a tall order to get that move done with so little time left in this race, but anything's possible, especially with the pace of Colin Knief. Andrew Whitehead rather improving his personal best sectors in sector 2 and sector 3 then, so he's got a nice centre pace as the fuel load starts to get lighter. He's pretty much matched actually Matt Daly's best lap on the previous lap, so he's got the pace to keep up with Matt Daly. Unfortunately, Matt Daly able to break away a little bit earlier, fortunately for him. Matt Daly setting a purple sector 1 while dealing with some lapped traffic. Let's see if that's affected his sector 2 as we come to the end of that now, heading down into mineshaft. We have the big drop before we come to the end of the sector. He's got some more lap traffic out in front of him. Let's see him come to the end of sector 2. He's not improved his time in sector 2, about 10 seconds clear of Andrew Whitehead rather still, but yes, still a decent lap from him here. Let's see if he improves it as we come towards the end of sector 3 now, into that heavy braking zone, the final corner, back onto the throttle as early as possible. Maybe using push to pass if you can get the benefit from the car in front. I think it's too far back, unfortunately, to get that benefit, but comes across the line, doesn't improve in Sector 3. Still the fastest lap though, so that's Sector 1. Maybe the fuel load's really starting to help the cars in Sector 1 as he uses the push to pass as well. 123 flat for Matt Daly, so a very slight improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. We've got just over 5 minutes to go in this race now, and it looks like Matt Daly is carving his way through the lap traffic that is ahead of him, building that buffer between him and Andrew Whitehead to secure this victory. It will be a very good bit of redemption for him if he can take the win here at race 2 at Kyalami. As we see, no major battles going on track at the moment, as we are still on board with Matt Daly as he comes towards the end of Sector 2. Now Colin Keneath getting a little bit closer to Paul Millman, that lap car in front of him. Only about 16 seconds between him and George Brook-Battersby. He's going to have a lot of work ahead of him. He wants to close that up in the remaining 5 minutes. I don't think that's possible, unfortunately, for Colin, but we see Paul Millman navigating some more lap traffic at this stage in the race, with Colin Keneath actually going purple Sector 3 on that previous lap. So, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, certainly got the pace to be a front runner. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But certainly, I think the RSS Supreme has definitely delivered on its debut, as we see Matt Daly jumping back onto that push-to-pass system there. To utilise as much power as possible, utilise all the revs, and get as much speed down that long straight as he can. It's not even much of a straight, really. It's got that kink in it, obviously, but in these cars, that is just flat out. I imagine as we go to somewhere like Monza or Baku, which we have later on in the year, we will see the straight line monsters that are these cars really distance themselves from the Tartus that we were driving last year. Obviously, such a huge power difference between the two. George Brook-Battersby improves for his best lap of the race into the 124s now for George Brook-Battersby. Willing Bliss had a fairly quiet race actually compared to the non-stop battling that he was enjoying at the end of race 1. He's got Rob Whitney ahead of him, got some nice pace behind him as well. They've just gone personal best in Sector 2. He may be thinking of taking P5 away from Rob Whitney if he can help himself to that, as we see Guy Swarbrick and Paul Brady battling it out for position on track as Guy Swarbrick wins out as he heads into Mineshaft now. It's not Mineshaft at this point. It is, ignore me. No, it's not. Ignore me, as someone's had quite a substantial accident. That is Guy Swarbrick and Paul Brady. A big lockup from Alan Matthews for his troubles as well. Big contact between the two there. Don't end up facing the wrong direction, but quite a bit of contact while they are battling. Sees both of them lose a little bit of time and off the track with a little bit of damage for the troubles as well. Andrew Whitehead wants to navigate this lap traffic as cleanly as possible, although with all the action going on between them, I'm not sure if that is entirely possible. He does get through though. Matt Daly smashes the best lap of the race so far. 122.8 for Matt Daly there. As you see, Willing Bliss still getting closer to Rob Whitney out in front, rather, but Alan Matthews and Paul Brady now battling it out. Alan Matthews ahead of Paul Brady. Paul Brady not executing that corner as he would have wanted, and Alan Matthews able to swoop past Andrew Brammer though. We will focus on in just a second. He's just gone green Sector 1 rather. Had a nice bit of pace in race 1. Not quite as high up as he would have wanted to be here in race 2, but just still be on for a decent result, especially if a battle can change the order a little bit, so to speak. Andrew Brammer, green Sector 2 once again, so really starting to drive this car on a low fuel load. There's a collision between Guy Swarbrick and Steve Knight by the looks of things. Yes, that is Guy Swarbrick losing out a little bit there. Currently the AM race being led by John Baker, as we have an impression of an old DTM car or an old touring car from Guy Swarbrick there, up onto two wheels. I imagine that was a bit of a shocking, a surprising moment for him there. Able to carry on a straight line though, which is good to see. The suspension taking a bit of a beating through that corner then, as we go on board with Willing Bliss as he tries to get closer to Rob Whitney. This battle will be forming up, if it does form up, right at the end of the race. So it could be another one for the ages for Willing Bliss. Enjoying the battles at the end of the race so far this weekend he has been. And it will be with Rob Whitney, so it will be a challenging one for him at this point. Obviously Barry Clayton not here to battle with him. Unfortunately, we saw certain drivers who just really enjoy battling each other always end up on a relatively similar pace and always end up enjoying a very close but very respectful battle, and that is what we've had from Willing Bliss and a few other drivers this evening. As we see Matt Daly out in front, just goes purple Sector 1, about 14 seconds clear of the rest of the order now. He is absolutely flying. He's got John Baker for company ahead of him. They're looking to lap him, looking to lap P9 as John Baker very courteously gets out of the way there. Purple Sector 1, let's see how his Sector 2 goes for him as he heads through the S's. We're also focusing on that delta, though, that delta between Rob Whitney and Will Inglis, which is getting ever smaller. So we'll rejoin him. We'll rejoin in that action in just a moment, because it is getting closer as they are now starting to battle. Rob Whitney defending as we come through the final corner. A little bit of oversteer on the exit of the corner there. He's going to that won't help him too much in terms of pace. He's got the push to pass to make up for it, but so does Will Inglis. Will Inglis in that slipstream and under push to pass. Is he going to try a really brave move down the inside? Can he drive that brave move down the inside? Rob Whitney's allowed him to take the inside if he wants to. He thought about it, dived on the brakes as late as possible, but not able to make that move done. Well defended from Rob Whitney there to keep Will Inglis behind on this occasion. About 7/10 of a second now behind him, so that defensive battle has done Rob Whitney well there. The battling not helping Will Inglis' pace too much, unfortunately for him, as it's not an improvement in terms of best lap for Matt Daly on that occasion, but he is miles ahead of everyone else at the moment, about 15 seconds. Very nice advantage to see him have here, as we have less than a minute to go on the timer now. Once again, another action-packed race, and it looks like the action is carrying on through the S's. Rob Whitney still trying to defend from Will Inglis as we come towards the end of Sector 2, the highest elevation point on the track, as Will Inglis looks away around the outside, tries to dive down the outside right at the last second. The old switchback wasn't going to work, though, from that far back, unfortunately, especially uphill. A little bit more brakes than you thought, perhaps. Obviously, that's another thing to get used to on these cars. Much better braking systems compared to the Tarsus as well. Using that push to pass there. An interesting place to use the push to pass on the exit there. Maybe he lost a little bit of pace on the exit, as we see him try to get a little bit closer now as we come towards the end of the lap. Rob Whitney defending with everything that he has got as we come up through Cheetah and into the final corner. About 4/10 separating them. Let's see what happens on the exit corner. Will we have another bit of oversteer from Rob Whitney? No, he's learned his lesson from the previous lap, is a lot cleaner on the exit this time. But it looks like Will Inglis is actually even closer by the looks of things. Doesn't have push to pass to utilise, though, at this point in the lap, which will be a little bit detrimental to him, because Rob Whitney able to take the inside line and defend there very nicely, as he does. Rob Whitney has got Will Inglis all sussed out by the looks of things. These two know exactly how they're going to behave with each other, which means that they can stay wheel to wheel, only inches apart from each other for so long, especially in a new car. Very impressive to see. We will go on board with Matt Daly in just a second, because he has started the final lap of this weekend. What a way to kick off the season it has been. If the action is like this, I am thoroughly looking forward to the other 11 rounds that we have for you in stock for the first half of this year's running. As we see the battle a little bit further apart this time, still about 3/10, 4/10, but we saw it get even closer at some stages on the last lap, as Will Inglis still taking that outside down there. It might be a line that he prefers, as he wants to find a way past Rob Whitney, perhaps force an error, pressure him right at the last second, really undo his race for him. He would, if he can get the pressure on this late stage in the race. Only 2/10 separating them. Will Inglis looking to get a move under braking around the outside, too far back though, not going to make the move done, and not going to get the move done from there, unfortunately for Will. And he drops back further again. Rob Whitney's excellent defensive skills here, really showing their uses as he comes around the final corner for the last time. A little bit of a slide from the back end once again, nowhere near as bad as we've seen from some other cars though. Will Inglis does have push to pass though. Let's see how much he benefits from that as we come down towards the final corner. He's getting closer and closer. Is he going to be able to outbrake him into the outside of the corner there? He is. He squeezes him to the inside there, ruins his confidence a little bit, but Rob Whitney takes the move back. He's able to take the position back there on the exit, but comes together, and in all that excitement we have missed Matt Daly crossing line. Unfortunately for you, Matt, I apologise there, but congratulations on the race 2 victory. Well fought from P5 in this reverse grid race. Very well executed race there. Takes P1, and well done to Andrew Whitehead rather, who comes across the line in P2. A very well executed race again. Yeah, he can feel very happy about that one. I'm sure he'll be sad that it's not a victory in there somewhere, but still a very good point haul to take away from this. George Brook Battersby will be the next driver across the line. Rob Whitney still leading that pack. I'm still focusing on my battle for P5, of course, as George Brook Battersby rounds out the podium on in P3 rather, and Colin Keefe coming around that final corner. Not the race that he would have wanted, not the race that he knows he could have had off the back of race 1, but he comes across the line in P4. Rob Whitney then still trying to defend from Will Inglis, who's getting a little bit more and more kind of desperate to get a pass, I can imagine. It is so frustrating, but still so enjoyable for both these drivers to be battling right up until the bitter end here as we come round the final corner now. Rob Whitney leads this duo here as we come round the final corner and come across the line now. with Rob Whitney taking home P5, Willinglist taking home P6. It will be Andrew Brammer who comes home with P7, and John Baker who comes home with the AM race win. Well done to Andrew, well done to John, and well done to everyone on the field. Really, that has been a very exciting weekend, and very well to get so well adapted to the new cars as well. They have certainly delivered. I am thoroughly looking forward to the racing this year with them. As we see, will Matt Daly be doing some victory donuts? Yes, he will. Good to see Matt as we celebrate here. They're very high points in the circuit, good to see, so everyone can see that bright yellow RSS Supreme there, enjoying some donuts before returning to the pits there, as we still have some cars on track there. Paul Brady wanting to come to the end of his racing here. Do we have anyone else enjoying some celebratory donuts to round out what has been an excellent weekend's racing? I don't think we do, but I will round out an excellent weekend's racing by saying thank you very much for joining us, as we have some more victory donuts from Matt Daly. Thank you very much for joining us. If anything, if race 1 was anything to go by this season, it's certainly going to be interesting, and it's going to be excellent to watch, so I hope you're as excited for it as I am. So until then, it is the end of the Formula racing for the next 2 weeks. We'll see you in Istanbul in 2 weeks' time, but before then we have the start of the touring car season as well. The touring car season starts next week in the old school Julia 1750s at Goodwood, and that will be a sight to behold, as that is my new camera car. I've been taken out for Formula Car and I've been put into a very nice looking Alfa 75, which is good to see as well. So that is my